This is Jason Clark, and you're listening to the Sheriff Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to an exclusive episode of The Sheriff. Guys, today I have a gentleman that I really look up to. Now, this gentleman actually grew up less than 5 minutes from where I grew up. So I'm intrigued to know of the circles that we might know of the same people. But ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is a Canadian sports analyst, author, and big-time internet personality. And he inspires me from his hard work, creativity, and risk-taking. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Stephen Glynn, a.k.a. Steve Dangle. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Woo, I'm good, man. There's hockey on tonight. I haven't been able to say that a lot as of late. So, whether they're blowing a lead or overcoming one, it's blessed.
Awesome, buddy. And you know what? Just to add to that, I love how you just explained that. But just to add to that, dude, I'm happy to talk to a hockey fan just like myself. You know, I'm a former player, brother, but I'm a huge fan of the game of all sports. But I'm a big hockey fan at heart, and so are you. That's why you inspire me, man. We are all Leaf fans in the GTA. Like it or not, we are all deep down. We just hope that they win every year. Brother, we are all in this together. You separate yourself from the rest, and I want to talk about the beginnings of before you ended up doing this. I want to talk about Scarborough, Ontario, brother, where you're from, where I'm from.
Yeah, it's been a big week.
Growing up in Scarborough.
Oh, it was great. I talk about this in my book. I didn't play hockey growing up, and it's a bit of a sore spot for me. I started picking it up just before I turned 30. I'm pretty bad, but I'm better than I used to be. So, I mean, that's always an improvement. And part of the reason I didn't really end up picking it up ever is my parents, yada, yada, yada. My sister had special needs, and it was difficult to get me into organized sports and everything. And by the time they offered to try to get me into hockey, all my friends were playing rep and stuff like that. And I'm the same age as Wayne Simmons. And I didn't know how to skate. And this guy's, he's currently playing for the Leafs. He's been in the NHL 100 years. But I always loved it. I was always Felix Potvin in the driveway, flopping around, going wild, making the most athletic saves against a tennis ball you've ever seen. And, if I didn't do this for a living, I would have been that annoying guy in the office talking about hockey all the time. I worked at the Toronto Zoo, which was just up the street from where I grew up. I worked there for 7 summers, and every summer I'm just writing out the Leafs lines on receipt paper. And when I ran out of Leafs, I would, maybe I was doing Sean McMorrow and the Sabres, and maybe I was doing other teams. And I remember one day I was so bored, I just wrote every NHL player I could think of. So anyway, that got away from Scarborough a little bit, but
no, I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Yeah. Love the game. And we were trying to figure out who we would have known mutually, but my age group, the really good players were Simmons, like I mentioned, and Rob Quitt, who is Ryan Ellis's D partner in Windsor for a bit. And the hometown legends of my little pocket of Scarborough were Mike Ricci went to my elementary school, St. Brendan's, and Chris Draper was the big one. He started the sort of neighborhood tradition of whenever a local wins the Stanley Cup, they got to bring it to this one pub called the Black Dog Pub. Draper brought it there twice, and Devontae Smith-Pelly carried on the tradition in 2018. He brought it there.
That's right.
When the Caps won. Yeah.
Okay, so let me add to this first of all. First of all, thank you very much for being the Leaf fan that you are, because we need as much support as possible. Secondly, dude, the reason why you probably felt pressured when your parents were offering you to play hockey is because, dude, our area is so rich with hockey culture. Mm-hmm. Like the Moet from Port Union. Okay, so for the listeners that aren't familiar with East Toronto, The beginning of East Toronto is pretty much Port Union. That's the Mowat area. We're right on the edge, bro. We're right on the edge of Pickering and Scarborough. Okay. I would say from Port Union to Morningside, that area right there has so many people that play hockey. The kids start, like you said, start playing select rep right away. And then everyone seems to just be, it used to be the MTHL, now the GTHL, single A, double A, and triple A. Double A is incredibly competitive. Triple A is like playing in the NHL when you're a kid. So this is what the kids have to go up to that might be late starters like yourself, and the intimidation factor because it's so hockey rich, my man.
Yeah, it was, that was maybe a bit of a young decision, right? And I wanted to play with my friends, and all my friends were really good. So I wouldn't have been playing with any of them. But I found a way to get in anyway, and hockey's been pretty good to me. There's not a lot of complaints, man.
Yes. So now just before we leave like the Scarborough, I want to talk about your family a little bit, brother, because what I'm finding is that the bigger characters that I have on this show, just like you, there's always someone when they're young that kind of like helps them craft this personality. I need to know who that is for you, man. Is it dad? Is it mom? Do you have an older brother that may have kind of done it for you? Who would you say is that person that helped you build this character of yours, Steve Dangle?
I think I was always kind of a character, but when I was, I alluded to it earlier, when I was about 3.5, my sister was born. She was born at 24 weeks, which is really premature. All sorts of complications, brain damage, autism, cerebral palsy. She required a lot of attention. And, as I got older, I was just fighting for that attention. It's not like my parents were ignoring me or anything, but they were being parents to a kid with far more needs than I was. So, it wasn't necessarily like a sports figure or a parent or anything. Like I remember, I was of a certain age. I was 5 or 6 when The Mask came out with Jim Carrey. And he was wild and bouncing off the walls and everything. And my parents were howling, and I saw the attention that he was able to draw from them. And so that, I was like, all right, so I guess the secret sauce is be hyper. And so, the journey of the class clown began, and it hasn't really stopped. I'm still hyper, and I'm still loud, and usually the loudest guy in the room.
Well, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, as we all know, Steve. And
yeah, buddy.
That's why everybody loves you, bro. It's because of how loud you are and because of the risks that you've taken. So hats off to you, man. So listen, I know that you went to Ryerson, but what I want to talk about right now is 2007. You're 19 years old. You start putting hockey content, particularly Toronto Maple Leaf content, on the internet. Tell me about this, bro. Tell me about like right before you started doing it, like what were you like, man, I gotta do something here, man. I'm a leap. Like tell me how it started, brother.
You're not far off. So I applied to radio and television at Ryerson at the end of school. Man, they really throw kids to the wolves. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do, man. I was 17 when you're applying for classes and everything. And you're allowed to apply for like 3 programs for $100 or something like that. And every program, in addition to that, you apply for is 33, which that was a lot of money for me at the time. And I realized I didn't apply to that program, and I should have. And it's like a half hour before the deadline. And I woke my parents up because I don't have a credit card. And thankfully, they didn't kick me down the stairs for waking them up on a work night. They were like, listen, all right, we can tell this is important to you. We'll let you apply for this and everything. I get an interview. I end up getting into the program, but as soon as I get in, like one of my first days, I realize I'm totally out of my depth because even though I got in, we're going around a circle introducing ourselves and everything, and all the kids have an internship. Some of them had degrees already, but they worked at like the local Rogers station as like a cameraman or a writer or a host or something like that. And I'm like, I did the morning announcements. And, as I'm searching for, that sort of real world experience and legitimacy, YouTube was really starting to take off, and the Toronto Sun had a front page at the beginning of the 07-08 season that pissed me off because it said Leafs better luck next year after they lost their first game of the season. So I make my 16-second rant and I go off on it. And by the third game of the season, because I made one for the second game too, I realized I'm like, you know what? I can make a video for every game, and I'm going to be pretty bad, but it'll be like a self-appointed internship where I'll just continue to improve. And I did that. This is now season 15. I never took an on-camera class in my life. All throughout all 4 years of school, I was usually like a behind-the-scenes sort of writer for most of the projects. So I owe a lot to YouTube, man. I'm glad I made that sort of split-second decision when I was 19.
So, but you're definitely got to be one of like the innovators of this type of thing, because YouTube, I think, started, wasn't it like 06 that it started? Like the first year, or 05?
04 officially, and then 05 it started to take off, yeah.
Getting popular and stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is just 2007, brother. You know what I mean? And from my research, you were getting incredible reviews like right off the hop. Like you're getting support from, like, you know what I mean, from fellow Leaf fans that thought you were doing a great job. So that must have been pretty encouraging.
It was.
Do you remember that though?
Oh,
like,
yeah,
how much
absolutely.
support?
Absolutely.
Okay,
like, I wasn't even on Twitter yet. So the only way I could promote my videos was in my MSN status. So it's basically just my friends, and a couple of them were, maybe nice enough to show like a college roommate. And that's really how I started growing, was like through dorms, and stuff like that, and just word of mouth. And I remember, oh man, I got 50 views. That's a lot of views. And then, oh my God, I got 200, and then it's 300. And there were a couple times I was featured on the YouTube Canada homepage. They sort of did before trending was a thing. And I got hit with like 40,000, and I didn't know how to react to that. And, it dropped back down, but it was still up from before, like 400 or 500. It was difficult to not kind of be obsessed with the numbers a little bit at first. But, what I always tell people starting out is, don't worry about the numbers, just worry about making good stuff, and the numbers will follow.
The content. It's all about the content. Good content, they will come. They will listen.
Yeah, baby.
If you got content, they will come.
Yeah. That's how it works.
Yeah, dudes. And then so brother, but what I'm interested in is what follows this up is the web series. Okay, so the web series, short form LFR, so the Leaf fan reaction. And pretty much what you were doing is you were reporting on the Toronto Maple Leafs games and news, right?
Yeah, I mean, it just sort of started with, one take, like wasn't even jump cuts or any of that, which, sort of got more popular and like added Energizer Bunny energy to the videos and everything. It was difficult to really create a theme as I'm making stuff up on the spot, but yeah, the further along I went with it, the more structured they became, and the more collected my thoughts became. And it was a work in progress. Like, I started in 2007, like you said. I don't think I made a good video until 2013.
Really?
and oh yeah, and I don't know if I made them consistently good until 2017. Like it takes a long time, and the thing I see the most often is people want to go viral overnight, and that's just not how it works. Ideally, it doesn't take a decade like it did for me, but it takes a lot of patience and a lot of willingness to be bad at something before you're good.
Which is the whole risk-taking aspect of it, though, right? Like, you're taking a risk, brother. You're putting yourself out there, right? And it could get absolutely crushed, or it could happen what happened to you and be incredibly successful. And that's what inspires so many, my man.
Yeah, and you got to take the good with the bad, Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, at first, I did not handle the comments well.
Well, you have to have thick skin, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't start thick. So you got to go through it. You got to take your lumps a little bit. You got to be wrong a bunch. It's easy to let your ego get in the way, and you don't admit when you're wrong and stuff like that. And that's something that I think has improved over time. I say improved. It's not perfect. I'm still wrong a lot, but you just try to be right more than you're wrong, and learn more than you stagnate. You know what I mean?
For sure, buddy. So now you mentioned earlier that some people they expect to go viral overnight.
Mm.
Now, one thing that you invested your personal time, energy, everything in, is something that was kind of built up for a whole lifetime. Because, bro, what you did with your podcast, the style that you had, your child, like I'm doing this research. This guy started a podcast with his childhood friends on the panel, as well as other former other analysts, but that idea, man, that's the best thing I've ever read. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
And how many buddies did you have on?
Oh man, a bunch. It started with, so Adam Wilde. He's a morning show host here in Toronto on Virgin. He's always been really ambitious. He's always known exactly what he wanted, and he's always loved hockey. He was actually a good player. He played. I think he told me he played against Wayne Simmons. I want to say they went to middle school together. That's Joseph Howe, and in math class, grade 11 math class, which neither of us were good at. We were just talking because we weren't good at math. And I remember him saying, one day we're going to have a sports show together. And I was like, okay, cool. I never played hockey, but sure. Okay, we'll try. And, so we're like, whatever, 16 when we have that conversation. He goes here, there, and everywhere. So I apply to Ryerson for radio and television, and so did he, and he didn't get in. And the reason that's wild is because his mom is Marilyn Dennis. And he didn't mention that in his school interview, not because he didn't think it was relevant information, but he wanted to do it on his own. Exactly. And we talked about the interviews that we had, my interview and his interview. It was just luck of the draw. If I was asked the questions that he was asked, I wouldn't have got in. And if he was asked the question I was asked, he would have. So total luck in the draw. So he went here, there, and everywhere. He worked overnights in Barrie, Ontario. He transferred to schools to Humber. By the time he got there, he realized, because he'd already been on the radio, the program, I don't want to say it was beneath him, but it was too elementary. Like he had already learned all this stuff basically. So he applied all around the country, went to Halifax with really no promises of anything, moved there when he was 19, came back home to Toronto. I was excited. He left for Calgary, came back to Toronto after a couple of years. And once he finally put his roots down a little bit, he approached me with his friend Chris Shapcott, who worked at CHFI here in Ontario. And they pitched the idea of the Steve Dangle podcast. I didn't even want to call it that. They sort of insisted. About a year and a bit into the podcast, Chris left, but that allowed us to bring on Jesse Blake.
I was going to say,
just a star, just an absolute star. And the show's taken off to something I never could have anticipated. Adam, years ago, so our first show got like 1,000 views or something. Unfair advantage for a first show because I had already built up a bit of a platform over, a little over half a decade. And Adam's like, one day we're going to hit 20,000 a show. And I was like, you are on drugs. There's no way we're going to hit 20,000 a show. And now between YouTube and all our audio platforms, we're at like 75. So he's always been, I can be a bit of the wet blanket sometimes. I can be a bit of the concerned parent. Adam has let it ride, and the eternal optimist. So I think we complement each other well.
I agree. So now in the beginning with your buddies though, Who are some of these guys? Like, are they Moet guys or what? Like,
Some of them. We had Justin Fisher
yeah.
on early. He's a Moet guy. Who else was a Moet guy who we had on? Yeah, I'm not totally sure, but like a few. I'm still in touch with a bunch of my Moet friends.
Yeah.
Because they'll
Well,
be
you're
like,
still young, my man.
yeah, I'm 33, and I won't say how close I am to 34, but happy belated 40th, by the way, there, Sean.
Thank you very much,
I
brother.
got your Hockey DB up right now. I don't have a Hockey DB page, but I know a couple members of the Bare Naked Ladies went to Moet, and I think
That's
one
right.
of them follows me, the drummer.
Right on. I
Yeah,
love them, man.
yeah, of course.
Hey,
Yeah.
how awesome are they?
Canadian legends, man. Canadian legends, and you like it a little bit more when they're from your neighborhood, you know.
Yes, of course. You gotta support the turf, man. The turf. You remember that word?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I would really like to get Chris Draper on, just because it would be like sort of a full circle moment, because our grade 2 teacher, Mr. Cody, he was like legendary, in the school and everything. He taught Chris when he was younger, and he ended up becoming my grade 2 teacher. He's a huge Habs fan. Wouldn't let Leafs apparel in the classroom. You got to hang that outside. Oh yeah. And he did the same thing to Chris Draper, who grew up a Leafs fan. And but the '96 playoffs, he told the class, he's like, "You're all Red Wings fans this year, all of you."
Right
and
on.
that was the beginning of the blood feud between the Red Wings and Avalanche
in Colorado.
Claude Lemieux hits him from behind, and game 6 or whatever it was. So the whole class wrote letters to him and asked, wishing him well and hoping he gets better. And then after he recovered in June, one of the last days of school, he came and visited the class. And for show and tell one day, I had brought a Chris Draper card that I got in a pack of cards. Principal comes sprinting down the hall. He's talking to the teacher. Teacher points at me. Principal comes over to me, and I'm in grade 2, so I'm like, uh-oh. And the principal goes, "You're the kid with the card. Where is it?" I'm like, "Oh, it's, we went and found it." He grabbed it. He photocopied like 100 copies of the card so that every kid in like grade 2 and 3 got a Chris Draper autograph that day. It was pretty cool.
Man.
Yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
And I've always been a Draper fan, being a Scarborough kid. Now picture this. Agincourt Arena, Steve. Okay, right. Agincourt Arena. Yeah. I'm in there. I'm about 12 years old. I'm at a summer skate. Chris Draper is at the arena with a couple other pros, and people are just in awe. I run up to Chris Draper and go, "Mr. Draper, can I please get an autograph?" He's like, "Where do you want me to sign it?" I was like, "I don't know, right here." Look, he signed a white T-shirt that I had, and man, I'm telling you, I ripped out the part, like cut it out, and I had that with the rest of my autographs that were all like paper or cards, or you know what I mean. And I kept that Chris Draper, cotton, I guess, cloth, right? That's my Draper autograph story.
Kids don't think, man. I spoke at a class a couple of years ago, and this one kid thought it'd be funny to, after I was done speaking, he just takes off his shoe and he gets me to sign his shoe. But kids are copycats. So then the whole class is just taking off their shoes. And I'm like, "Guys, I need you to know I'm doing this under duress. Please do not have your parents call me and asking for new pairs of shoes for all of you. Like, I'm doing this because you were adamant that you wanted me to sign your shoe."
Yeah. You don't want a sue lawsuit either. Okay, well, I mean, 200 plus 200 plus 300, they're so expensive these days, man.
Yeah, so somewhere I'm sure in like a Goodwill in Oshawa, where I live now, there's a bunch of kids' shoes with my autograph on them for some reason.
Hey, man, it wouldn't be too bad for someone to pick that up, man. I'm telling you, you're a legend now, bro. That'd be a good find. Someone to find, first of all, a shoe, and then it's signed by Steve Dangle. That's priceless, man.
Throw it on eBay. On eBay.
Brother, 2014, I want to jump. This is the year that you start working with the all-star company Sportsnet. Okay, so now this is what I liked when I was reading about it. You start off behind the scenes. Okay, they probably had you, doing a whole bunch of things. You were a guy that really appreciated being there. Everyone was feeding off your energy, and they probably just wanted you around. To be honest with you, maybe they didn't have a gig for you yet, but then you start getting the gigs, bro. Then you start hosting shows. Then you start filling in on Tim and Sid. Tell me about this part of your life. Like, it must have been just wild.
That was weird, man. So I'll back up. So like December 2013, actually no, I should back up even more. So spring 2013, the lockout just ended. I'm working 1,000 jobs because I had a few jobs before the lockout. I had to get some jobs during the lockout because I didn't know what the hell to do to pay the bills. And one of the jobs I got was to work for the KHL doing highlights for them.
Oh, cool.
They were not only late on my final payment, but they had shortchanged me through the whole season, I figured out.
The KHL.
The KHL. So I discovered this in the spring of 2013. Halloween Day 2013 is when they finally paid me in full. But it was like 6 months later, right? And that's when I said to my wife, I'm like, all right, let's go get a house. We finally had barely enough for a down payment. We move into our house March 2014. We're about to get married in July. And I worked 5 more shifts at my job at CBC doing highlights before I got laid off. Okay. So, we get married and everything, but I really don't know what I'm going to do. And so I'm like, all right, I guess I'm making YouTube videos and the podcast full time. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And, a few weeks before the season starts, I get a call from someone who I had met when I was an intern at Sportsnet, which was 6 years prior. And they said, listen, we have an idea for a behind the scenes job for you, but it gets you in the door. And I said, when do I start? So
yeah, buddy. Now
I end up starting.
No, please.
I end up starting.
No, please.
And a few people at Sportsnet were like, oh, Dangle works here. Does he make videos for us? Well, no. Well, why not? And, what sort of sealed the deal for that was that fall, the Leafs lost 9-2 to Nashville. And I lost my mind. And it got a lot of traction, got like 250,000 views. I walked into Sportsnet and Sid Cixero, who I didn't know that well at the time, he just stands up at his desk and goes, Steve Dangle, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Dangle, and like drew all this attention. And, I wasn't used to it. And it sort of helped build momentum from there.
Right on. So you're referring to like doing stuff for Sportsnet on their YouTube channel and website. That's what it was initially?
Right.
Okay, awesome. And then so now I know I already mentioned it, but dude, I didn't make it important enough because it's very important. In 2018, the live television. Was it Tim or Sid that wasn't present?
It was Tim. So it was me and Sid.
It was you and Sid. Now this is live television hosting.
Yep.
Now is this not the biggest sports like in Canada, like the show at the time?
Pretty huge. And like I don't know if you've ever looked at the night sky or something like that. If you look at it for too long, you start to think about it a little too hard and it freaks you out. That's when it comes to live TV, you just sort of do it. You just let the words tumble out of your head. You don't think about it too much because if you do, you're going to freak out and the words won't come out. So, and on my way down there that day, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to be on Tim and Sid. Today I got to be Tim. Wait a sec. It's American Thanksgiving. It's the biggest football day of the year. I don't know anything about football. Like, oh my God, we better milk the hockey topics today. And luckily the Sens were in the news because they were having ownership issues. And then the Sens and Oilers actually made a trade during the show, which was a godsend. And
wow.
I ended up doing it without throwing up. And so, so I eventually got to go back on, and the next time I was on, it was Tim and Friends, so I got to do one with Tim, and sure enough, they had Jack Campbell on that day, and I got to help interview him. So
Right on.
pretty cool, man. Pretty cool.
It's extremely cool, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, man. So now it just every topic gets more exciting here, bud. 2019. We're gonna talk about your book. We got to talk about this book.
Yep.
So you release a book documenting your life and career. Okay. Now this is what I love, man. This is the title. Tell me about this title, man. This is a long title. It's a detailed title. I love the title.
This team is ruining my life, but I love them. How I became a professional hockey fan. It's probably too long. But here's the hilarious part about that. So I'm wearing a Leafs jersey on the cover. You need to get permission from the Toronto Maple Leafs to wear a jersey on their cover. And I asked them, I went through the proper channels, and they were like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. You know, we don't really have a problem with that. What's your book called? And I'm like, this team is ruining my life. And it was a throwaway joke that I made during a video. I don't even remember what year, maybe 2014 or 15. And for whatever reason, people loved it and it stuck. And it just seemed like the appropriate thing to call it. But I also didn't want the title to convey that I hated them or anything. So I put, but I love them. And then how I became a professional hockey fan was basically letting everyone know, hey, here's what you're going to get in the book. And the book, it mostly goes up to the moment I got into Sportsnet, maybe the first year. There's a few stories that trickle in after that. But it's basically, I wanted to emphasize the hard work that went into it, but also, you know, typical for hockey, I got a lot of good bounces. I got a lot of good bounces, and you know, when the puck was on my stick, thank God I knew what to do with it.
Yeah, dude. All right. So I know that we're time restrained. So just real quickly, I want to get these last two things in. The first thing, Mr. David Ayres, who was a special guest on our show. We got him on the year anniversary of your viral video.
Oh, God.
Tell me about this relationship. Did you know Mr. Ayres before? Because he's always around. Tell me about it.
So that's the funny thing. I had no idea who David Ayres was before that game. And, you know, all I could focus on, like, I wasn't listening to his backstory or anything that night. I was just focusing on how pathetic it was. The Leafs were losing to an emergency backup goalie. And the moment I realized, you know, I might actually cross paths with this gentleman is the next morning I woke up to a text from my cousin, who's about your age. And he goes, hey, you know the goalie who beat the Leafs yesterday? I'm like, yeah, I know yes, I know the goalie who beat the Leafs yesterday. I was watching. He goes, that's my goalie Friday nights.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
what, in Whitby? Let me guess. Whitby?
In Whitby, yeah.
Yeah.
And my cousin, he was on the Pickering Panthers. And I'm just like, oh, there you go. And I was just like,
so who's your cousin, brother?
Dave Visconti.
Visconti? Okay, I know the name. I don't know him personally, but I'll tell you what, Daryl Dean, who's a buddy of mine that went to Moet, but he's even older than me. He was on that same Friday night team. Because he's
no way.
On Facebook, I see him say, man, I don't know if I'm dreaming, but my goalie is playing against the Leafs right now.
Did you ever play with Danny Severette?
I played with him in London. I was on the Knights for about a season and a half.
Oh, okay. So that's my cousin's buddy. That's
okay. Cool, man.
There you go. We're making connections. So
yes, we are.
Yeah. So
okay. So now this is perfect because I know you got to go. The Leaf games are that's who you are, man. That's what's created this character.
Yeah.
Okay, bro. We have a special player this year on our Toronto Maple Leafs, man. He's from our ends, man. He's from our ends, Cardinal Newman's very own, this Bunting kid. Have you done some specials with him, like being the Scarborough kid that he is?
So I have a hilarious Michael Bunting story. So 2014 draft, I called up this young Ontario Hockey League general manager no one's ever heard of named Kyle Dubas. And he was GM of the Sioux Greyhounds.
Yeah.
And he was kind enough. I was like, hey, listen, I'd like to do some interviews with some draft eligible guys. I'll really take whoever you can give me. I don't care who the names were. So he gave me Jared McCann, who I spoke to and was, great. And he also gave me this kid named Michael Bunting. And he's got this great story, Cardinal Newman, athlete of the year, played AA, crushed it, but if I remember correct, couldn't really afford AAA.
Yep.
Finally takes the dive, plays AAA, does well. And thank goodness he did well, because it was in front of Kyle Dubas, who ends up putting him on the Sioux Greyhounds, and he plays well enough in the Greyhounds that he ends up getting drafted by the Coyotes. What a story, right? Great story.
Yeah.
So talked to him all about that. I wrote about it, and people loved it. I don't know much about this guy. I don't know, how much he's going to play in the NHL, but I'm cheering for him and stuff like that. So people like the feel good story. But I got one tweet from someone who really didn't like it. And I was like, who is this? And I click on it, and it was my aunt. I go, what? Why doesn't my aunt like this article about Michael Bunting? So turns out Bunting and my younger cousin played AA at the same time, and Bunting hit my cousin and gave him a concussion and took him out of hockey, basically. Okay. So I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So I'm so torn. I'm like, oh my God. Well, I mean, he was 15, but it's my cousin. And so then the Leafs signed the guy. And I'm like, oh my God, like, this is my whole life here. And if he scores and it's an overtime win, like, I got to cheer for him. My cousin's a Leafs fan too. And he gave me a very hockey answer, because I called him up. I'm like, listen, man, I'm going to have to talk about this guy, and I'm going to have to cheer for this guy. And I'm pretty sure you're going to have to cheer for this guy. So what are we feeling? And he just goes, listen, it was a long time ago. It was a decade ago. It's all good.
Yeah, bud.
Yeah.
So is he one of your favorite guys to mingle with, or what? Like, what? He's got to be on that team.
Oh, he's one of my favorite guys to watch. Like, you talk about. I thought Curtis Gabriel nailed it during the preseason. He's a greasy little rat.
Yeah,
but he's
been on the show as well.
Oh, there you go. He's our greasy little rat. I love it. Like, with this Leafs team, a lot is made about size, but he doesn't play small. I've never seen him back down from a fight. I've never seen him back down from a confrontation. All of his goals are 2 centimeters from the goal line. You know what I mean? He plays exactly the style the Leafs need. Sheldon Keefe was talking about playoff style goals in the Amazon documentary, and the Leafs weren't scoring enough of them. That's all he does. That's all he does, baby. And it's a pleasure watching him play, and I cannot believe they signed him to 2 years.
Yeah, dude. So this rough and tumble style, this hard working, get your nose dirty, go to the net hard, is the typical Scarborough way, in my opinion, brother. Steve Dangle, Sean McMorrow, Michael Bunting, all us Scarborough boys. That's what we like to see, brother. And that's such a cool story, though, that you told about like the career ender and all that, because that's what my listeners want to hear, man. They want to hear the real raw stories, buddy. And I appreciate you bringing it. I was a little bit intimidated because I know that you bring the heat, and you sure brought the heat, bro. You brought it, man. In the short time, I want to thank you on behalf of the listeners, bro, because you have such a big following, bro, which I'm a part of because of your energy and because of your style. So I want to personally thank you for entertaining us, and I hope that I'm able to talk to you again soon, my man.
Thank you, man. I hope I was an adequate deputy.
And I want to thank the listeners for tuning in to another episode of The Sheriff. We'll see you next time, guys. Woo!